And now, Ralston Reports.
Welcome back across Nevada to Ralston Reports. A week from Wednesday, January 16th, Governor Brian Sandoval will deliver his State of the State speech. But 1 week before that, this coming Wednesday, there'll be a progressive alternative State of the State presented by Sheila Leslie. She's a former state senator who lost a bid to stay in the Senate in the last election. Okay, let's talk about a couple things. I assume that you are going to frame this discussion by saying the tax structure is no good, corporations, the mining industry, you hinted at this earlier, don't pay enough. I would guess you're going to talk about education too, which is a huge part of the budget, and we don't fund education enough. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but my guess is that the counter argument is going to be, why should we keep pouring money into a system that a lot of people think doesn't work?
Well, I think the answer, John, is to ask people who have kids in our public schools or are attending our higher institutions, are we funding it sufficiently? I hear from parents all the time about the lists of things that are sent home for them to buy, about textbooks, about smart technology, about roofs leaking, all sorts of problems. And I think the answer, honestly, is there isn't enough money in the system. We aren't paying our teachers enough, and we can get diverted by the whole accountability and reform movement, but even people who believe that we need to do more in that area understand that Nevada is at the bottom when it comes to funding education and funding just about everything. So really, once you get beyond the whole charter school and the reform movement arguments, you're left with the fact that Nevada simply doesn't put enough money into education or anything else. We look at some states that appropriately tax their natural resources, for example, and we see that they're spending, Wyoming is spending $14,000 per capita. Do you know what Nevada spends per capita? $3,000. Now tell me that there isn't a problem there.
Yeah, I guess, you know, I agree with you on most of these issues in terms of education being underfunded, but I guess what I would ask you is, why can't you do both? Why can't you reform the system and fund it better?
Well, we did quite a few reforms last session, as you know, and those reforms are playing out, the teacher evaluations and all the other things, the structure within the system that we did. I think we put good faith effort in making reforms to education, and those efforts can continue, but that shouldn't be used as an excuse to continue underfunding education.
You know, it's interesting that you're going to be making this case, and I know you're worried that the Democrats are only going to talk. I mean, you were there last time. I mean, the Democrats actually had a plan, and I thought it was a fairly bold plan, and with some vision to broaden the tax base, to bring in a lot of businesses who weren't in there before, to get rid of eventually that stupid payroll tax nobody likes, which is a disincentive. But you know what? You guys hid the ball on that for the entire session. I mean, you know you did. You guys had that plan early on, and so where's the credibility, I guess, is what I'm saying now. How are you going to get this uprising going unless it starts at the beginning of the session with that discussion that they're talking about?
Well, maybe after listening to the progressive State of the State, they'll come out with that plan and they'll start there and go forward. I agree. It would be best to have those ideas presented right at the beginning. But John, these are not difficult ideas. It's not like there are 100 choices. There's probably 3 different ways to broaden the tax base realistically. Those could be presented in 3 different hearings. You could talk about them to death. What we need is action. What I would like to see from the leadership of both houses and both parties and the governor, first and foremost the governor, is a resolve to get this done. To come in at the State of the State and say, you know what, here's our problem, we have to do something. I don't care which of the 3 solutions they pick, honestly. I would go with any of them. I just want to see something get done, and I think there are a lot of people out there in Nevada who would agree.
All right, when we come back, we're going to talk more about this. I'm sure the governor's going to be watching. I'm sure he's going to take a lot of your ideas, rewrite his State of the State speech. And speaking of the governor's State of the State speech, you should go on my website, ralstonreports.com. There's a poll there. You can vote on what is the most likely headline after the governor's State of the State speech. Is it going to be no new taxes? What do you think? Go on there and vote. ralstonreports.com. Stick around.
Find archive programs by going online to mynews3.com and clicking on Ralston Reports.
Welcome back across Nevada to Ralston Reports. Governor Brian Sandoval is 10 days away from delivering his State of the State speech. But first, he's going to have to listen to Sheila Leslie, or at least he should listen to Sheila Leslie. At least she thinks so. The former senator is delivering a progressive alternative on behalf of the Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada and Progress Now. Nevada, you know, I'm a little puzzled, though, about your tone about the governor. I mean, the governor expanded Medicaid. The governor is extending those taxes. He's done it twice. Now, he could be an honorary member of PLAN. Could he not be, Senator Leslie?
Well, let's see if he has enough money in the budget to even do those things. I'm sure his budget people are still making those calculations. I think it's going to be tough, even with the extension of the sunsets and with the little bit of growth that we're seeing. It's going to be tough to even cover what we covered the last biennium. And I think as they get those numbers laid out on a piece of paper, they're going to see that.
I heard you say on KNPR this morning, the local NPR affiliate here in Las Vegas, that you don't think Governor Sandoval is really who he seems. What did you mean by that?
Well, I've known the governor for many, many years here in Reno, and he really is a good person, somebody who really cares deeply about the state. But I think he's been pushed and pulled by the Republican, the Tea Party element, and I think he's actually much more moderate than he comes across. I think he really does want to do the right thing, and I'm hoping that he does. When we look at mental health funding, for example, we've cut $80 million over the last few years for mental health funding. He has some things on his items of special consideration that absolutely must be funded. Even the RJ said the center down there, the emergency center in Las Vegas, should be taken off that list and funded. Where are they going to get the money?
Yeah, even the RJ, don't we say that a lot? And you're talking, in case people don't know, those items for special consideration are these things that they tried to keep secret from the public and the media until we raised an uproar about that. That is really, let's get down to the nub of it since we don't have much time left. That distills exactly what's wrong with this state. Every session, isn't it, Senator Leslie? These things that are considered add-ons would be considered standard in most states, wouldn't they?
Absolutely. In fact, in my speech on Wednesday, I'll talk about a new name for that list. Instead of items of special consideration, it should be something like items that Nevada really needs but can't afford because we refuse to have a tax system that works.
Well, I'm looking forward to the speech. I have to ask you this question, being in politics, observing politicians as long as I have. You're going to be on the ballot in 2014, 2016? You can't be done. You're young.
Well, thank you for the compliment, but you know what? It's kind of nice to have my life back, to have my weekends back, to have that huge responsibility off my shoulders. So I'm not looking for another elected office right now.
That's a non-denial denial. You're keeping the door open, right?
Well, you never say never. Who knows what the world will look like in 4 years. All
right, Sheila Leslie, always a pleasure to have you on the program. Good luck with your speech on Wednesday. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And on the next Ralston Reports, critics fear the new fact-finding process for when police shoot citizens will favor the cops. We'll talk with Metro Sheriff Doug Gillespie. That's the next Ralston Reports. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great evening.